Morning. Wine that cheers the hearts of men. This is from Psalms. Oil that makes the face shine, and bread that sustains man's life. There's two ways that your countenance can glow. From wine, which causes the person to rejoice, or oil. Oil that makes the face shine. Is it wine or oil? In Hanukkah, it's about the oil, of course, the donuts. And the menorah, the light. Wine, part of the daily service in the Holy Temple. Wine libation, accompanying the singing of the Levim. Wine comes in, the secrets come out. Wine has color and taste and effect, impact, as opposed to water. Oil, the Rebbe speaks about also as something that just lends flavor. You don't want to drink oil. You want to put it in your donut. So the face shines in one of two ways, either through wine or through oil. So the difference between these two types of celebration, the Alter Rebbe writes in Shir Shirim L'Kutetera, because at first glance, wine also makes the face red. So why is it eating a good steak that makes us ruddy? Red wine? Ahine inyan mashayayin sameach hainu shepaelas hayayin lahavi min hahelim el gilui. So there's two ways to bring out joy. One is through revealing something that was concealed. In comes wine, the secrets come out. And that's why your face gets red when you drink, because it draws out the lifeblood in your veins. Gilui pnimius hadam, the inner energy of blood. Mashahaya b'bchinas halam al yidei hayayin el hagilui, which was not engaged. Now wine comes in and engages those cells. That's why your face glows. And since the soul is invested in blood, your blood courses through your veins and you're animated. So therefore, in the inner sense, because everything has a spiritual source, the spiritual source for this is man nefesh. This is more an idea of the spirit that is conveyed through the blood, more so than the molecular explanation. There is a spiritual energy that's being conducted here. That's why wine brings out the inner life force of a person. By simply revealing the inner quality of vitality, the circulatory system. Welcome. The wine gets the blood flowing, but it's revealing in it the inner energy. There's energy at different levels. This is how joy is reflected in wine. Because remember, wine is about revealing secrets. There's a secret of the inner vitality of your blood that makes you shine. Once you just pursue the course. What is it? This is the Yaina Shel Torah, the wine of the Torah. So there's the rejoicing of wine here we described. It does cause your face to shine also, but here we're speaking about a certain type of being let. Welcome, called salas panim. In the verse in Psalms 104:15, oil that makes the face shine. this doesn't have anything to do with animating your blood. We explained just before, the soul animates your blood, and that's the inner vitality it has that has to be brought out through a process of imbibing wine, the wine of Torah. Hu inyan ha'aras panim shebaba adam mitzad era chochma. So there's another type of appearance the face takes on. There's one that glows from wine, but the tzalas panim, the shine of the face, that comes from wisdom. The light of wisdom, shemeir bay, that illuminates within the person. Everyone has a certain understanding of life, and like Winnie the Pooh glows at a different frequency than what's the other guy, Babar or something? Or that's it. The donkey, what's his name? Hee-haw? As the princess of Roman nobility saw in Rabbi Yehuda, his face was a shine. And she says to him, Meira Varavi, you're a teacher and you're drunk? She saw his face shine. She assumed that he was drunk. He's not drinking wine. So here the oil is talking about, here we're comparing wine to oil. Wine brings out the inner quality of life in the blood, whereas oil is talking about shining with wisdom. When you shine with wisdom, your face is lit in a different way. It looks like you're drunk, but it's not. That's not why your face is red or shining, because that's chachmas adam toyer panov. The wisdom of the person shines upon his face. The Kamesha Amru, the Rabbi Avua, the Nehirin Anvoi, Mipnei Shenimsa Tesefta Chadata. As it says about this Talmudic sage, Rabbi Avua, that his face would shine because he found a new teaching. It could be he discovered it in his own looking inward, but usually they had a tradition of passing on wisdom. Each sage would have their own notebook. Even the prophets would have notebooks. Not everything became canonized as part of the 24 books of the Torah. Not just 5. The Tanakh has 24. Harei zeu b'chinas ha'aras hapanim, she'enu ba machmas kibutz adamim elo ba v'nimshach mil mailo. So it's not about bringing out life energy from your blood, so your soul resides in your blood, how best do you access that divine energy? But it's from a mindset, which is the presentation of God's light from above, shemeir matzavim apanim, that shines and illuminates the person's face, the sage. V'hainu er hamaskil, this is the intelligent light. God has a divine light that's supposed to reveal something to something that can be understood. If not, it's just always a walk in the park that you don't quite understand. So eventually you have to understand Hashem and learn everything about the divine mind through the Torah. V'hainu er hamaskil. So when a person's face shines with wisdom, this is the ore of the intelligence, the light. Shekol chadash. No, seichel chadash. What? Seichel chadash. Could also be read as shekol chadash, but I'm 99% sure it means a new mind. You can draw down a new mindset that's based on divine inspiration. That's what's called oil. Which is higher than wine. Wine is bringing out the blood's natural divine energy, so your face shines, you're illuminated. But to really be lit, that's through wisdom. That's called oil. K'mayim Razal, shemen shetzaf al gabe yayin, as the sages teach, that oil floats upon wine. Nechlaku imhu chibur, do they become one or not? Vezeu letalas panim, do they mix? Etc. It says so. V'zeu l'hatzel panim hashemen davka. That's why we say specifically through oil, the face shines. V'hainu ki shemen hu l'mayla b'mchinas mayim. So here we bring in water. We say that oil is higher than water. Water is like the generic liquid of the universe. Even though water also, we say many times, is wisdom. Sometimes we say it's chesed too. Oil is the source of wisdom. You have wisdom, which is water. It goes from a high place to a low place and keeps the same quality. Then you have oil that sort of splashes the whole thing into existence. That's the level of wisdom that causes the face to shine in a supernatural way. Etc. So, Chochma, okay, one more bit from here. This is an inspired intelligence that enters a person from a divine source. Remember, we say that any authentic words of Torah that a person utters is literally the words of God from the beginning of all creation and on, and beyond that. This is different than the effects that we spoke yesterday about at length of davening, which is about the soul's yearning for its source. Here it's different. Here it's shining. The source using the body as a means to be a chariot and be part of the whole. Okay, the rest of the world's organic, and a person's supposed to be divine and light up the world in a divine way by simply following the Torah and being thereby a chariot for Hashem's influence in the world, mostly expressed through direct contact, face-to-face contact. So the face shines. Look at my poem about the mountain. This is a state that is not one of engaged dveikus. This is a state of wisdom. It's like channeling. Because wisdom is a breakdown of the words keach ma, the power of what? Shehu b'chinas bittul, which is when you become a what, and the answer is with a capital I. I can't resist doing this all inside with you. I'm trying to get to something that's 2 pages off. I just find this I can keep going back. This is incredible, this mimer. It's very long too. I'm jumping in the middle with you. I found something incredible it says here about matat. Very fascinating topic of the angel matat. Completely lost my place there. Okay, here we are. It's just because the part before it speaks about it puts it in Kabbalistic terms, this idea of the idea of Yismach Levav that's quoted in this pasuk. Yayin Yismach Levava Enosh. Wine causes the heart of man to rejoice. V'zeu inen Yismach Levav Enosh. It says that the Enosh, the word for man, that's the lowest of all the, I think 3 or 4 descriptions. Enosh Shema Malchus Hashem Mislabeshes Bebiyah Bena'ar Matat Naila de Shchinta. When Malchus invests itself in the created worlds, in the Na'ar, which is Matat. We have the two levels of Matat and Yisrael Saba. The Na'ar is Malchus as it comes into the created world. So the more worldly expressions of sovereignty, that's called Naila de Shchinta, the shoe of the Shechina. Nikra gam ken enesh al shmei kivaglea yerdis maves. It's also called Enish, the lowest of all mortal names, because it's describing how its legs descend into the opposite of life. And went through the wine of the Torah, it brings even this person, his heart, to shine. Okay, that's the first level of wine. Oil is the source for all that. So the Seichel Chadash, the new mind, is called oil. And that's above the whole thing of wine that we've been saying, is bringing out the sort of nefesh in the blood, as we said. Okay. Okay, now I found my place. This brings us to where we started with yesterday, the whole lightning bolts. Why did God make the lightning bolt display on Mount Sinai? It ended up being, we were given the Torah twice, right? On Yom Kippur, we were given the tablets. And it was given in silence, as opposed to the whole fireworks. There's something that is, in a way, higher when there's a silence. Here we're talking about the second level. It starts as a ratzah. This need for fire. The firebolts was to light up the Jewish people. We said it was not intended to scare them. It was intended to light their souls up with joy. This is the Kleis HaNefesh. That's the joy of meditation, which is associated with wine. We spoke at length here about wine that lights up the blood, we said, with inner divine energy. But it's related to hispaininus. Wine and meditation go hand in hand. And there's a joy in meditation because you connect. It gives you the possibility, it's a pursuit of connection with your Creator, and it lights people up with joy. So that process is one of acknowledging self, because it's the appreciation of self towards your Creator. Chokhmah is the other direction. So it's about the abnegation of self-experience and the experience of Hashem through you, in a way, through bittul, through nullifying your own, becoming this Merkava. The Merkava is a bit of a confusing analogy here, because that's what's the display of the inspiration, the desire, the yearning, the burning. Okay, so usually when we talk about the Merkava, it's the man that sits upon the throne, upon the chariot, that assumes the position of bittul, because it's the position of authority to sit on the throne. So you have supernal man investing itself as a configuration of holy forces, starting with the wisdom, the mind, the heart, and action and communication, that expresses a divinity that assumes the shape of man and the intended integrity and composition of a person. That's more expressive of bittul, because the man assumes this formation of these different virtues form the expression of divinity in the world. When that's fully expressed, that's a more transmission. So everything is in a state of bittul, and it's just conveying. That's wisdom, and that's the shining of the face that we said before. Bittul hametzias, total abnegation of conscious experience and being more in the connecting with a higher consciousness. Hefek hislavos, that's the opposite of the yearning. It's more now the person yearned to get somewhere and then completely obliterated themselves in the process, and to experience something infinitely more fundamental, the original consciousness, as opposed to the sort of fractal mortal consciousness that finds its way back to that. So the wisdom is also bittul, kayach ma, the power of what. That's why we say about the heavenly chariot, the beasts upon it, upon their heads is, this is where we stopped yesterday at, the awesome ice, the kerach haneira. And it explains that is the melting of the minds of these angels into their creator, expressed by bittul, as in the rearrangement of the word ice, kerach, into chirik, which means the dot of the nouns in the Hebrew alphabet, that is its shape expresses humility and bittul, and especially as it appears beneath the letters. It's a dot beneath the letters. And that's why it says when the angels still and their wings go down, we spoke before, when their wings are up, that means they're davening in the state of Ava Vayira. And when they go down, they're channeling. Perish keshek kanfeya mislabus Ava Vayira trefena lamato ki mispatlim mitzias, because of their love and fear that took them to such an incredible state that they go out of themselves completely, and therefore their wings go down. It's not about them anymore. They're channeling energy into the world. Shalahem aimdim mevchinas bittul lagamri, completely out of their own existence. See, it's good to learn about angels. V'zeh lehatzil panim b'shem, and that's the meaning of to shine the face with oil. Delakaera eina muvan halashin lehatzil v'haver lemeimar b'shemen yatzhil. The grammar is unique. I did a Google search in Safari.org, the greatest website in the entire internet, justifying the entire internet. Too bad they don't have any Chabad in there. Very strange. So they have the potential for absolute perfection. If they just, I would love to be the guy to initiate that project. To just call me up, Safari.org. So the expression to cause to shine is different than it will shine. It's an unusual grammatical use of the word lahatzil. Kamei amar v'lechem yisad v'yayin yisamach. So the reason why it's this strange expression, lefishet, the whole point of wine causing the person to rejoice is that afterwards, so the wine, the hispainus, the meditation, should achieve a goal, lahatzil panim b'shem, causing the face to shine. Ki kol ikar simcha b'rish be'esh hatshukko b'tchila. That all the original spiritual devotion expressed through this burning fire of desire to unite with the Creator, the b'chinas ratzei, described as running, shuni krayayin, which is associated with wine, hu rak kadesh yeh achar kach b'chinas hashuv. That's only to bring about the purpose of creation, which is to have a dwelling place of the infinity of God in the lowest realm. So you bring it back. You become a conduit to shine the light of wisdom. That's the light that's elicited through wisdom. That's described as the wisdom of a person shines on their face. So the main intent is b'chinas hashuv, shu b'chinas lahatzil panim b'shemen. The main thing is shining this wisdom, not the yearning that precedes it. It's intended to actually achieve a goal of making the person to a godly person. Because once you've done that, it's more sustainable. I just feel bad that I have to skip some parts. Welcome, Marlene. Welcome, how you doing? Welcome to the backyard. It's a bit of a windy day here. I can have my windsurfer. I have to hold my selfie stick. It's a bit retro, admitted. But it's not blowing away anytime quick. But it can't handle the wind. I need a wind. I need an umbrella or something. Okay, so I'm going to skip to the Biur HaDevarim to explain this matter. It's very windy. I might have to relocate. Take me away on the windsurf. I took my dog on the board behind it in the windsurf. She was terrified. She looks like a freezing little chicken shivering away because the legs go more skinny when the fluff all gets water. No, she's not doing it in the 9 days. How dare you think that? In the 9 days? I don't understand why you can't do water sports in the 9 days. Why not? It's because of bathing, I think, that you can't go in the water, not because, so you're not bathing. If anything, you need to take a bath after you go into the lake. Anyways. So, to put this in the terms of Kabbalah, what are we talking about here? There is the wisdom that shines a light of divinity into the world, and there is the soul trying to find its way back to that source. We spoke about Malchus being invested in the lower worlds, Matat, and the wine of Terah, what? Causes it to shine even at the level of Naila de Shchinta, the shoe. Malchus is the shoe. It's a vessel. So it contains the foot, I suppose. A shoebox is the model for like keeping your still life together. You have a shoebox of like 1 or 2 tchotchkes that you keep along for the ride. Did you ever burn any pictures? In my yeshiva, people burned pictures. I encouraged them to burn pictures. And Rabbi Lipsker, our great leader, God bless him, would only want us to burn pictures of the non-Jewish relationships that we had, being just not the family tradition of the tribe. You can join the tribe by converting, so I'm not making an appeal. We're not supposed to look for converts. But one of the effects of exile is that the Jewish people mingle amongst different cultures, and some of them end up becoming great contributors to Torah, and their grandchildren become recognized sages like anybody else. Conversion is not intended to be, what's it called when you like knock on people's doors? Proselytizing. Though we do knock on people's doors, to put on tefillin, to just give them an opportunity. It seems proselytizing, doesn't it? The Rebbe never referred to it as proselytizing. It was just allowing the Jew to wear his proper garments, basically. There's 10 specific campaigns that the Rebbe made. Charity, so you give them a coin to put in the box. A Jew gives charity, so the Rebbe made a campaign. It's somehow something different. You don't have to change who you are in any way. These are the actions that are distinctly godly. Try them on and see if you like it. I think that's more the approach. Anyways, so the process starts with the burning desire, with like fire like wine. And it's intended to bring you to a state where you can shine wisdom and do the shuv, returning back to the world that you thought you had to leave. This is the light that shines through the face of wisdom, because it's more ongoing. So that state is the level of Keser, crown. It's the level of pleasure, the level of will. Two different ones, more inner than the other. On the crown has two rims, inner and outside. It's what sits upon the head, so that the head, the wisdom, has a source that's in Keser that transcends the whole thing. Hu makar tainug, that's the source of all pleasure. The chinas sevu kalami, the transcendent beyond anything to do with worlds which are finite. So you would create the impossible, where a finite world can experience pleasure that transcends the very world itself. That's Keser. But once you start talking about creation, that you create a divine world called Atzilus, and that becomes the prototype for meaning in the rest of the worlds that come out from it, all the way to the matrix of our physical world, a bunch of vibrating atoms in a infinite vacuum cleaner. So the beginning of this whole process starts with wisdom. You have something that precedes the worlds. It's called Keser, crown. Then you have all the worlds. That the shining for those worlds to be created comes about through wisdom. The Chachma hu sherish Hatzilus. This is the source of the highest world of Hatzilus. Ki ikar Hatzilus hu hatikun me'elam hatayu. Because the main purpose of Hatzilus is to correct the higher world than Hatzilus, which is the transient world of chaos. The conflicted world of chaos, which is a polarity as opposed to an integration. The rectified state of things is when Tikkun, the world of Atzilus, is the impression of all the energy in the world. It's the face of all the world, is ordered in the world of Atzilus. So this physical world should reflect that. But the power that's trapped in the world is from the world of Teo, which transcends it. The correction of this, because there was a shattering and a fragmentation of this energy trapped into different physical things of the world. Engaging with that world and using it for the right purpose is called a tikkun, a rectification. Ubachachma is briru, and to rectify and to refine out, to sift out the divine. What is that? What Matisyahu calls it? Sifting the sparks. I like that very much. But wisdom is the power to do that. Vetam ki inin hashvira me'elam atayu hainu shenaflu b'chinas yesh. Because the shattering that happens in the divine world of chaos is that it entered the world of self-concept. Yesh. Not mortal consciousness here, because we're talking about divine expressions called spheres and Eilamais, worlds. There's something about the divisiveness of each sphera in the world of Tayu being for itself and nothing else. That exclusivity is what causes the sense of yesh here. Because yesh, we're not talking about an ego here, we're talking about a godly state. It's a bit hard to understand how yesh could be applied to something so original. Vatikan hu liyes ayin. So God causes the shattering, which is self-concept. He flings spiritual energy, divine energy, into this delusion of separateness, to allow that separateness to find its way back into a divine organic system where the soul is supposed to be the source of all light. You apply that order, that's the tikkun of the world, and you reveal the teyu. The yesh, the delusion of separateness, becomes an ayin, subsumed into the truth of infinite consciousness. V'hainu al yidei chokhma ke'achma, done through the power of what? Wisdom. V'hine ha'chokhma atzma yesh ba'as sfiros. Okay, I'm going to cut to the chase a little bit more. There's a very long note here from the Tzemach Tzedek that, okay, I'd really like to do it. It's really important stuff. Maybe tomorrow. So this Malchus, God casts the divine consciousness into a world of concealment. Malchus, God's sovereignty, is cast into the created world called Bia, and it becomes reflected of the world of Atzilus through the work of the Jewish people by introducing Torah and mitzvahs into the world. Al Yidei Yisrael Mekadshei Shmach, sanctifying God's name in that way. Shemamshikim B'Kiddush Kodesh Gamken Gimel Pamim Kaddish. They say sanctify Kaddish, Kaddish, Kaddish 3 times, indicating Chabad, Ki b'chachma esbriru, the power of wisdom to rectify and sift. Okay, there's my translation. I like that very much. Isbriru is to sift, because you got like a vision of the guy like on the gold rush with the pan, looking for a pebble of gold, and that's his whole life. And Levi's was born. The Levi was born. It's not showing me comments. Swipe left to reveal comments. I tried it, it doesn't work. It usually shows me comments. So if someone could test that by saying, testing 1, 2, 3. And the Jewish people introduce this rectification, this sifting, because why do they get that honored role? Because they come, their source is the Zaidi Israel, Yisrael Saba, the elder soul, Betfuna in understanding, Kitfuna Hainu Gilu Hispaininus, which is symbolic or expressive of the idea of Gilui, revelation that occurs in Hispaininus, in meditation. Shemizen nimshach b'chinas eineg haganeiden elyein betachtein, because from meditation, from Hispaininus, you draw on the paradise, the divine pleasure of the whole system of reward God created. Gan Eden Elyon, Tachtein, Tahainu Giluya Tainu Chibakaser. That's the crown. So Chochma Bina and Das is the mechanism for birur, for sifting. But the Kesser, after you've accomplished that, after you introduce this sort of integrity of the world of Atzilus, the divine world, into a physical world, you reveal Kesser. That's Makar HaTainug, we said in the beginning of this Maimer. Oh, in the Bir HaDvorim, the explanation part of the Maimer. So Hispaininus, this process of understanding your origin, it results in this Einig HaGan Eden, this divine pleasure, Gilui HaTainug Shebekester Makar HaTainugim, because you're revealing the pleasure of Kesser, which is the source of all pleasures. So as good as Baskin Robbins can get with their 31 flavors, it's supposed to be, I guess, for every day of the month. You can go there and create a good habit. Is that why they have 31? Or is it the gematria of Baskin Robbins? I like 31 because it's this elusive gematria of God's name Aleph Lamed, and Lo, if you reverse it, which is no. but it is also the seemingly arbitrary number of 31 kings that had their palaces in Eretz Yisrael. So you had to battle against 31 kings to not just the 7 nations. The whole world was represented there, and the 7 is the 7 branches that can go to bad character, we learned last week. That's why Eretz Canaan is divided into 7 nations. 7 people you don't want to learn from. 7 peoples. So the point of Hisbaininus is to result in this experience of paradise. That's Keser, the source of all pleasures. Ki Eden hu Chochma. Because Eden, the Garden of Eden, the Eden itself is Chochma, is wisdom. Adayin, no. Ki Eden hu Chochma, Shem Adayin, Ein HaTainug B'kinas Giloi. 1 second. Ki Eden hu Chochma, Sham Adayin, Ein HaTainug B'kinas Giloi. So you need 2 forces. When you're in a state, when there's a state of wisdom, that is not a revealed type of pleasure, because it becomes the chariot, the total bittul state. That's not gilui hataynu. That's not pleasure revealed. Ve'ikar gilui b'tfuna. So it's in the process of meditation that the main revelation of pleasure is associated with, not the actual chokhmah that it leads to. But in terms of purpose, that is more fundamental. So as we said before, so this is like the yin yang of it. Aderek Masha. So he gives an example. The Adam in a person. The main pleasure is when you finally understand the thing. That seems to give an argument for the opposite, the Chokhmah. But no, okay. So understanding the Bina, that's when that's the process of understanding the intellect. You could be drawn to an intellect. You say that just makes a lot of sense, but I don't quite get all of its ramifications. When you understand its depth, that brings the connection with it. That's very pleasurable. So when you get in touch with the source of your soul, that's what it is there. That's the source of Neshamas Yisrael hu b'chinas tainug zeh, this pleasure. When you finally understand the idea, that's when you're in touch with your soul. Kaneda shazriya hu b'gmar bia. As we know that reproduction, the possibility for conception happens at be'es hatainug, when there's the most pleasure. So it's the obviation of sort of limited confines of your, and you could reproduce yourself in a moment of bittul brought. So how's the link with pleasure? Usually an experience of yesh. So here we're saying that tvuna, bina, that's the revelation of that pleasure. The source of that pleasure would be chokhmah, I think. As we learned, and we had classes about this, about Shimshon, that Delilah would seduce him and deny herself to him at the worst moment. And because Shimshon would not want to express in vain, let's say, because he was a very holy man. In fact, he was the leader of the Jewish people. Like 20 years after he passed on, from his grave, they heard his teachings and judgments, because he was a judge. He's in the book of Shoftim. And so the souls of the Jewish people draw from Eineg Shalamayla Shehu Be'es Hashba. So the Jewish people are said to be conceived. And that conception occurs through divine pleasure, analogous to here we said with a person who has sort of a miniature version of that when they father or parent a child or conceive of a child. So the soul was conceived in this way, that it erupted from divine pleasure. the keser, the crown. Then we get into the fast. This is what actually got me to be so fascinated by this mimer, because it asks the question, what's the big deal about experiencing pleasure? Why should that be the secret to the universe, is pleasure? And the question, what could God take pleasure in when he is pleasure? That doesn't make sense either. So God creates a world that is denied of the truth of the unity of all creation, of everything in divinity. It's denied that knowledge. It's not aware. It doesn't feel that it is by its nature. And in order to give a chance for the perfect divine perfection to give, the pleasure is therefore in the giving. So that's why that process of giving is the birth of the Jewish soul. It happens to be that it's through pleasure that comes into play to show what initiated the whole thing. God wanted the opportunity to give, so the infinite reality of divinity is the acknowledgement of pleasure and love being the source of everything, and to be replicated not to be replicated, to be to be replicated in God's creation. So God creates a finite creation that experiences the journey towards the infinite reality of divine pleasure. The Kesser is the ultimate reality, and it's like a joke if you never get it, because the soul it's very difficult. The soul would never want to come into the world if it saw all of the challenges it faced. It sees all the benefit rather, and longs to come into the world. Giving it sort of the platform to launch off of into the complete process has to be in a body, we've said many times in this class. The ultimate state of reward is when there's a physical body to experience it, not just a soul in heaven enjoying paradise. Okay, so the Talmudic source for this whole thing is what we've learned yesterday about. Rabbi Akiva said, my son, telling the Rashbi, I know that more than the calf wishes to suck, the cow wants to suckle. But I am afraid of the danger. It was a time of occupation of the Holy Land of Israel. And Rabbi Akiva, the teacher of Rashbi, Rabbi Akiva lived 120 years. Rashbi might have been also mature at this time. He says, more than I want to be able to teach you, more than you want to be able to learn wisdom, I want to teach. Vezeu bechinas hatainu shalamaylo. That's the idea of God's pleasure in wanting to give. V'hainu tainug hashpois haneshamis. The pleasure in giving divine energy to these souls. L'chen yesh behem keach la'aleis es hamalchus. Therefore, with that tainug hashpos haneshamis, this pleasure in being shone into the world, these souls, in the pleasure is the source of the ability for Malchus to be lifted up from the ashes of the world. God's sovereignty cast into the physical world, li'es mekadesh shmacha, to sanctify God's name by putting God's seal in it. L'kadesh eisa mimata l'maylo, to use this world that's so low and offer it up like a sacrifice would go up in fire. I'm surprised the dog doesn't want to come out here. Maybe she's conspiring. She stole Chana, the little 8-year-old, God bless her, her doll or something. And what do? So I have this magic touch now. It comes from the liver. Liver chips. You can get the dog to do anything. I could get her to recite Tehillim, probably, on the such a ride. So the souls are empowered with this divine origination that allows them to lift Malchus up from the earth, to sanctify God's name in this process, and to use the world to be uplifted. Hare at mekudeshes li. That results in the female being betrothed to Hashem. Perish shetiye mekudeshes lezeranpin, bailo, to connect. And this is interesting because we had the whole thing of the Bailayach Isayach. Your husband is your maker, and what that means here in Kabbalistic terms is referring to Zeranpin, the masculine 6 divine emotional attributes. The man is emotional. It just means character is sort of more judged by its masculine expression, the outward expression, what you do with your emotions, not as much the inward. Shetzilas betala mibiyah. So when it's betrothed, when Zeranpin betroths Malchus, that's Yichud Zun, it causes the ascension of the created worlds to reflect the world of Atzilus. Okay, now there's a very interesting note from the Zamach Tzedek, which I think I want to do with you because I have a lot of it underlined. So it's important stuff. I mean, it's all important. But it's important for what I want to bring out here is the focus, the extent of the focus in detail, and the supremacy of what is at the top of the entire totem pole of our hierarchy. What is the ultimate of Judaism? It's not quite a totem pole, and I don't think what's at the top is the good thing. I think they want you to be close to the earth. Dear Bathtainim. In our premise, our question rather, of what pleasure does God have in creation, there can be no pleasure if you have everything already. If you're perfect. Ella, L'ka'ira in a move. At first glance, the Tzemach Tzedek here questions, how is this understood? Sheri Adarav Ksiv Ki Mikol Maker Chayim Maker Hataynugim Eiz V'ched B'Mimkeimai. It says that with you is the source of life, the source of pleasure. Eiz, might, and chedva, and delight is B'Mimkeimai, is in his place. It switches from second person to third there. But it seems to say there's something higher than pleasure. This is to bring out the difference between divine pleasure than mortal pleasure, because God created mortals to have a narrative to learn from. But there's, in some ways, it always is different. That's why there's prohibitions, for example, against idolatry, which limits our understanding of what represents God's unity in the world and what is taking it too far. So there's very specific lines. For example, in our Holy of Holies is a statue with 2 cherubs on it. If someone introduced something into the shul, they would think it's of a zara, it's idolatrous. And it would be idolatrous because there's certain, with regards to such sensitive things, there are strict delineations of what constitutes the symbols of monotheism from idolatry. So here we're distinguishing, that was just an example of where you see the importance of drawing a line. So here we're using this to draw a line between the mortal pleasure and divine pleasure, because a person gets pleasure from something outside of it. God can't have that. There is nothing outside of Hashem. So how does this idea, how are we supposed to learn it from our own understanding of these terms to something that's beyond our scope? shechutz menu k'mei shebesagas hachokma mefayara amachilas meichel arav. A person gets pleasure from something else that they have contact with, like the examples the Alter Rebbe gives here. Understanding a beautiful wisdom, chochma mefoyara, a very elegant wisdom, oima chilas meichel arav, or eating ice cream, I suppose. Zafilu haneshamas hamisangim al Hashem began Eden. But even those souls that take pleasure in Hashem in the Garden of Eden, harehem kabin tainug mashem masigim. Ziva Shechina. They only can take pleasure in something that they can fathom in some way, or absorb, or experience in some way. What about what's beyond the realm of mortal experience? Here we're talking about a soul, so it's not quite mortal, but finite experience. That's not called Ziva Shechina anymore, the radiance of the Shechina. It's beyond your ability to detect or feel. So Hashem doesn't have anything outside of him to take pleasure in. There's nothing outside of him. To say that God could take pleasure in that thing. So that is a mistake of saying God needs us. It's a mistake. Here's an explanation for it. I think I've given one or two others of how it's a mistake to say that. Though there are a couple sources that would say the other way, but I think this is how you're to understand that the question doesn't really make sense. There's nothing outside of Hashem for him to take pleasure in, so his pleasure has to be in giving, not in receiving. That God could receive. It's not about receiving. There's nothing outside of him to receive from. So that's why Hashem is often stated in the masculine he, because usually we see God as a giver, and masculine in our tradition is the giving. The keva is a receiving. So even though God has a divine attribute of the Shechina, which is feminine, that is really reflective of the creation which receives. And it's therefore not as at use in the grammar of the Hebrew text to say she when referring to Hashem. It's just a technicality really, because the whole idea cannot limit Hashem. So you ask then, how can you have an inherent receiving quality in the core divine personality? It's God's compulsion, not compulsion, but God's determination to actually create something to give to. That seems to be like the original personality of Hashem. Kaviyachol. There's nothing outside of Hashem, so what can he possibly take pleasure in receiving from? In fact, Hashem himself is the source of all pleasure. So what does he take pleasure in? That is the find of the month, I would say. Is it the Arizal's Yort site today? Is it the 5th of Av today? So, what sense does it make to say that God takes pleasure in anything? He's the source of all pleasure. Hu v'atainug, I can't underline this enough. Hu v'atainug shelo yisbar kaviyachol davar echad. Him and his pleasure are really one and the same thing. Kaviyachol. Kameshu yedea v'hu adea. As Rambam writes, and there's a whole note on Tanya about this, which seems to say that's at one level, then the whole thing, you take it back a step further, and God cannot be said to be one with his knowledge, because there is only a unity. So that seems to be needs to be explained more. But here we're quoting that that when we say that Hashem and His pleasure is one, that's like God and His knowledge doesn't add anything to Him. V'hu or His knowledge, meaning His sensitivity to everything, His das, His connection with everything. Shehu hayedea v'hu hadeya. God is the one who knows, and He is what is known. So if you know everything, what can you take pleasure in? You know everything about it. It's that inherent pleasure to everything, since it comes from a very good source, is really synonymous with the author. Okay, the Rebbe Rashab said that I'm leaving my writings with you, and he meant that that is where his personality exists, I guess, like the Lahavdil, the AI that recreates personalities. And now you could just make some deep fake and as if the guy lives on. Wouldn't that make a good podcast? Have an AI make a podcast influencing all of humanity. Oh, what a horrible story. That could be a... That's why we say that the king rejoices in his own awareness. I don't know how I could say anything else after that, but it's in the middle. I'm going to have to continue this tomorrow. You see where we're going? We're going to we're trying to explain how the shuv is preferred. Why is returning to the world? Isn't it all about the soul feeling the bliss of letting itself go into Hashem through love and fear? And then we say, no, the angels rest their wings. That's a higher state. That's the shining of the wisdom through the face. So Hashem has a face. There's a pnimius, a panim. It become the inward expression of divine personality to give. I don't know. Think about it. Have a good day.